event condition is false, I will hold on to the previous value, which is -5. Then on day 3, my event condition becomes true again. Then I'll recalculate negative returns on day 3, and it can pop out like, oh, -3. So that's how the trade-when operator works. So with these two conditional operators, we can actually go to our next alpha challenge. So let's say, right, our hypothesis is that if the stock price of a company has increased over the past 3 days, it may decrease in the future. And if the number of stocks bought and sold today is higher than the monthly average, then we will allocate more in the whatever position we're going for. So how do we express this in an if-else expression? So let's say, right, my event is this volume greater than ADV 20, which is, as you can see here, if number of stocks bought and sold, which is the volume, is greater than the monthly average, which is why we have this event here. Then we'll put more in the long and short position. So we have this alpha expression, right? If this is true, then we'll times 2, we'll double the amount of capital we put inside. Else, we'll just put the normal amount. So this actual alpha is just measuring the change of close value. So if the stock price has increased, then TS underscore delta will be positive. So we actually want to do like the reverse. So if it decrease in the future, you want to short it, right? Which is why we put a negative. So if you realize, if we use this expression, the result is actually quite bad. We will get a Sharpe of 1.39, which is greater than 1.28. However, the turnover is very high at 52.53, which results in a low fitness of 0.69. So we can see that this alpha expression can capture this idea, but it's not really the best implementation. So what can we do to fix this? So in order to fix this, right, we don't want the alpha value to change so rapidly. So what we can do is we use a trade-when operator instead. So you see that the event is still the same, it is volume greater than the monthly average. The alpha expression itself that we're trading on is still the same, negative time series delta over 3 days of the close price. But instead, we use the trade-when operator. So if we use this expression, right, we will only change our positions when the current volume is higher than the average daily volume. If it is not, then we will maintain the position. So this helps us to decrease turnover because the frequency of the alpha value change will be lower. So the actual alpha value will not change as frequent as compared to using the if-else operator. We also set the exit condition to 1, which is -1, which is false, so it will never be triggered. So if we simulate this expression, right, we can actually get this pretty nice looking result. You can see the Sharpe is 1.64, which is quite high. Turnover is 32%, which is still high, but a lot lower than the 50+% of the first iteration. And fitness is 1.02. So this is actually a submittable alpha. However, you can actually still improve on this alpha itself. So how do we improve on this alpha? So instead of changing the expression or the value inside, we can actually change the simulation settings instead. So using the same alpha expression, we can adjust the simulation settings. All we need to do is change decay to 2, neutralization to industry, and truncation to 0.01. So this will be the new simulation setting that you'll be using to simulate the alpha expression in the previous page. So the 3 changes is just neutralization, the decay, and the truncation. But if you see, right, the performance difference isn't that big. It's just a slightly higher sharp value. So you guys can take note of this expression. So the sharpness from 1.64 to become 1.71. So that is conditional operators. So next, we'll be going to different type of data fields. So mostly we have been working on matrix data field, right? But there's actually 2 other type of data fields called vectors and group data fields. So what is it? So the matrix data field is the standard one that most of you guys work with, where data is stored across 2 axes. So x-axis would be across stocks, and y-axis would be across time. So you only have one value per day per instrument, and you can use it directly for almost all operators. So some of it can be like close, open, volume, because for each stock, there's only one close price per day, right? You can't have 2 close price per day, it doesn't make sense. This is why it's one value per day per instrument. But what if the stock can have multiple values per day? That is when vector data sets come in. So this is stock across 3 axes instead of 2. So the x and y is still the same across stocks and across time. Then we have this new axis, which is across z axis, which across time instead of days is within the day. So we can have more than one value per day per instrument. So to use vector data fields, you must use vector operators to convert them into matrix form. Then afterwards, you can use whatever operator you normally use on the matrix data field on the vector data on the transform vector data field. So some example of vector data fields are like can be like news, could be social media data, because throughout the day a stock can have many news related to it coming out, right? Not only just one, which is why we have a vector data field that try to capture that information. So important thing, you need to use vector operators on vector data fields to convert them into matrix form. Then afterwards, you can use whatever operator you have been using for the matrix data fields on the transform vector data field. So for example, if you see this, right, you can see that this is my vector data field. Then I use a vector operator, such as vector sum. This will transform it into a matrix data field. Then I'll rank it. So this is how you may use a vector data field. So lastly, we have the group data field. So it's just stock classifications. So different groups have like different classification. It could be like sector, industry, market. All those are different groups. So it's just a data field that contains group of stocks that are classified together according to like some model or classification. It can only be used with densify and group operators. So for example, this alpha expression, right? You use group neutralize on the alpha and this group operator. So the group data field. So this is the group data field. So I'll just show you guys how the vector data field works. So for example, right, we have these three stocks, Google, Facebook, and Apple. Then we have, in each day, there's multiple sets of data, right? You can see 12, 14, and I can't see the last one. But yeah, there's multiple set of data per day. Then what we do is we apply vector operators on it. So it becomes from a three-axis matrix, three-axis vector into a two-axis matrix. So you see there's only uh, one column and one row instead of having like multiple layers. Then afterwards, you will submit it on Brain, then you do whatever Brain normally does and converts them into the percentage points and the neutralized results. So you can just think of vector data fields as being a slightly more complicated matrix data field that you have to apply vector operators on to convert them into matrix forms. So you can't use vector data fields straight away most of the time. So it needs to be converted to matrix fields using vector operators. So one example of it will be the news data set. So just a short overview about the news data set. News data provides the latest financial news that drives market movements. So it could come from financial reports, such as every quarter or every semi-annually, companies will announce their financial reports, right? Such as their earnings, their investments, and how much dividends they're giving out. Or something more frequent could be like analyst recommendations. So analysts could give their expectations, ratings of certain company and opinions. So news can come from company products, such as new products or new approvals based off like different legislations or legal events, such as if companies are being investigated or they're going through bankruptcy. So all of this can be considered news. So we're going through the trading session. So there's actually three main trading sessions in the US market. So there's a pre-trading, which is a 4 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Then from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. it will be the trading hours. So this is the main trading session. And from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. is a post-trading session. So most of the time, the news are actually released in the pre and the post-trading session. So most of the time, the news will be coming at 4 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. or 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. This is just a little FYI for you guys. So with this, we can actually go on to our next alpha challenge. So our hypothesis is that if a stock has historically benefited more from a long position after a news event, strong news momentum should exist and will go long. Else, we'll use a mean reversion alpha instead. So, how do we actually find out whether or not a stock has historically benefited more from a long position? So, we'll be using this data field, which is a NWS12, news 12 after HSZ underscore SL, it is a very long one. So, what this data field actually gives us is that you tell us whether a long or short position will be advantageous. So we want it to be a long position, right? So, and we need a long position after a news event. So how do we actually get that idea? So what we can do is we use this to kind of find out whether or not the stock has benefited from a long position after a news event. So we will take this uh, vector data field, we'll find its average and sum it over 30 days and rank it. So what this means is that if the average value of the vector data field and the sum of it over 30 days is greater than 50% of the other companies, because we rank it over 0.5, right? So it's the top half of the companies. So if the value, if the company tends to be more advantaged in the long position compared to more than half of the other companies, then you will do alpha 1, which is just going long with 1. If it's in the bottom 50% instead, then we go with alpha 2 instead, which is actually this mean reversion alpha. So you can see that it's just a change, negative change in close price, and you just rank it. So this is a mean reversion alpha. So I want you guys to try out this alpha expression and these simulation settings and try to simulate it and see if it works. So just a recap for the event itself. We are measuring the total sum of the average value of the vector over the past 30 days. If the value is greater than half of the company is comparing to, we will long it with 1. If it's less than half of the companies, then we will use a mean reversion alpha instead. So everything will remain the same. If you go and open up a new simulation, all the simulation settings should be the same, other than just changing the decay. So the standard value should be 0.08. Okay, so if you guys simulate the alpha, right, you guys will probably get something that looks like this. Um, the Sharp is pretty good, but the problem is that because of the low returns, right, the fitness is lower than 1. So this is actually a unsubmittable alpha. So how can we increase the fitness? You actually have to do a very small change to increase the fitness based off the previous alpha expression, which is that we can actually extend the look back time. So over here, right, you can see that we are only looking back for the past 30 days. But what if we increase the look back time from 30 to 60 days? So I'll show you guys how the code may look like. So it looks something like this. It's the exact same, except that instead of 30 days, it's just 60 days. So if you guys simulate this instead, right, the results you get will be better. You can see that now the sharp is even better now, where it's 1.74. Fitness is now 1.07. So this is actually a submittable alpha. You can see that it passes all of the tests. So sharp is greater than 1.25, fitness is greater than 1, and the turnover is between 1 and 70%. So you can see that this is actually a submittable alpha. So I'll just let you guys look at it for a bit. All right, next, we'll be going through some grouping techniques. So this one can be slightly more challenging as well. So we have group data fields. So group data fields contain the group index of which each stocks are at, where stocks are grouped based off the classification of some model or industry classification. So for example, there is sub-industry, industry, sector, exchange, market, country. So all these are different groups, group types. Next, we can have statistical groupings. And lastly, you can actually create your own custom grouping using the bucket operator. So these are what the group data fields are. Then next, what can we do with them? We will use group operators on them. So group operators are a type of cross-sectional operator, such as your rank, your z-score, but at a final level. So this is where the cross-sectional operators is applied within each group. So if you use a rank operator, right, it's actually you're ranking it to the whole market. But if you use a group rank operator, you're only doing the rank within each group. So for example, you have like group rank, group mean, group max, group z-score, group neutralize, and group mean. So all of this only applies to the within the specific group that you want it to be done, the operation you want it to be done. So we can have group neutralization. So normally in our simulation settings, right, we have the neutralization, which is the sub-industry, industry, sector, market, and none. So if you use that, it's actually the same thing as a group neutralization with that certain grouping as a data field using the group neutralize operator. So this group neutralization is actually a risk reducing technique that reduces a portfolio against a chosen risk. And it's a method that allows you guys to hedge against a self-defined risk by neutralizing within a particular group. And you use neutralization like this. So you just group underscore neutralize alpha, your alpha expression, comma, your group. So if you use group underscore neutralize alpha, comma, sub-industry as your group, it will be the same as using the sub-industry neutralization in the simulation settings. However, why we would want to use this group neutralize, right, is actually because we can create our own groupings and neutralize against it instead. Because right now, you guys only have a limited number of groups to neutralize against. However, you can create your own groupings and neutralize against that instead. So how do we create custom groupings? We create custom groupings using the bucket operator. So the bucket operator works like this. So for example, right, I want to create a custom group that have different stocks based off the different market cap. So what we need to input inside the bucket is actually operator after the rank. So for example, if I rank my cap, right, then my stock A will be given a value of 0, my stock B will be given a value of 0.5, and my stock C is given a value of 1. So this is example of what happened if I rank cap, then these three stock got these three values. So I also need to define a bucket for my bucket operator. So you define it by using this range equals to, and you can set the kind of the start and end and how wide each bucket is supposed to be. So for this one, right, our start will be value of 0, and our end at a value of 1, and each difference will be value of 0.2. So if you guys have done Python coding before, this can be quite similar to the range function. So it's start, end, and step. So if we use this as our range, right, this bottom one will be the result. So for bucket 0, you actually range from negative infinity and up to and including 0 because that's a start. So it'll be negative 0 to wherever your starting position is. Then my next bucket will be 0, not including 0 because it's a round bracket. So not including 0 and up to and including 0.2 because it's a step, right? My step is 0.2. So 0 plus 0.2 gives you 0.2. Then my next bucket will start from 0.2 but not including 0.2. Then you increase the step to 0.4, 0.4, 0.6, 0.6, 0.8, 0.8 to 1. Then you realize after you reach the end, right, which is 1, you'll be from wherever value you end, but not including it, up to positive infinity. So you can see that from negative infinity up to your start point will be one bucket, and whatever the value after your end value will be another bucket. So no matter what value you put, right, there will always be these two buckets, which is everything from negative infinity to your start, and everything after your end till positive infinity. Then each of these steps will be its own bucket. We have bucket 1, bucket 2, bucket 3, bucket 4, and bucket 5. So if you look at this, right, if you use a bucket operator like this, if you bucket the rank of cap, which is here, with this range, is this center one, if you compare the value, right, 0.0 is in bucket 0 because 0.0 is included. So stock A will be in group 0. Meanwhile, stock B have a value of 0.5, right? So if we look here, 0.5 is in bucket 3 because 0.5 is within 0.4 and 0.6. So stock B will have a value of 3. Then lastly, my stock C have a value of 1. Then afterwards, my bucket 5 includes the value of 1. Therefore, my stock C have a value of 5 in the bucket. It's considered the fifth group. So this is how you can actually create your own buckets, your own groupings, and kind of group things together depending on how you manipulate the range. So for example, if your range is only 0.5, you only have 4 buckets. The bigger your range, bigger your steps, I mean, the bigger your step, then you have less and less buckets. But if you want to make it more detailed, more final, you will decrease your step, then you increase in number of buckets because each bucket will hold lesser values. So this is how you can create your own custom grouping with the bucket operator. With that, we'll be going through the sentiment data set. So the sentiment data set represents the aggregate buzz of market mood about a stock. So the information could be based off newspaper, news website, Facebook, Twitter, the social medias, discussion groups, and forums. So the source of the data could be from many different locations. And the aggregate buzz or mood could be both positive, negative, or just amount of buzz about the stock in general. So there's a lot of people who create alphas using this because they think that, oh, if a stock, a lot of people talk about a stock in a good way, the stock may perform better in the future, or if many people talk badly about a stock, then the stock will do more poorly in the future. So this is how people can use a sentiment data set in a stock, in an alpha, I mean. So now we'll go through the next alpha challenge, and the last one. So the social media effect, this is a problem statement. Also, our hypothesis is that poorly performing stocks are discussed more in general on social media. Thus, they might have a higher relative sentiment volume, and we would like to short those stocks instead. So what does it mean? Because we're assuming that if this amount of volume is based off whether or not it's poor performing. So poor performing stocks have higher volume, and we would like to short poor performing stocks, right? So how they implemented is that you just apply negative weights if there are more settlement volume. So you can just do it like this. Negative SCL 12 underscore bars. So SCL 12 underscore bars is just a measure of the sentiment volume. So what you guys can do is you guys can try to create this alpha expression with these simulation settings. And you guys can try to simulate it and see what it looks like. So I'll give you guys a minute or two to try and simulate this alpha. Make sure to simulate this alpha with these simulation settings. And someone asked, what is the easiest way to find the most effective or best simulation setting? So depending on the alpha, different simulation settings will work differently. So you have to kind of maybe trial and error. But I think the more you create alphas, you will know how certain simulation settings affect the alphas in certain ways. So at the start is mostly, I would say mostly trial and error, but the more you get used to it, you understand like, oh, certain settings affect it in certain ways, and maybe you can cover up the bad parts of your alpha. So if you guys simulate this alpha expression, right, what you guys will get is actually this result. So you can see that it's quite a bad alpha. We have a 1.19 sharp, which is a fail. We have almost 120% turnover, which is way greater than the 70% max, which results in a super low fitness, 0.32. So you can see that this alpha expression actually doesn't work. However, the hypothesis is still correct, but just that the implementation is wrong. So how can we implement it correctly? So it's a bit more difficult to actually get the correct implementation. So I'll just show it to you guys. So what we can do, right? Let's line this up for you guys and see it more clearly. So what we actually want, we can actually group neutralize the alpha that we are looking at against the volume. So if you see now, right, the turnover is way lesser. There's 61% instead of 120%. So if we create our custom grouping, which is just using volume as our groupings, and we group all the different stocks that are of similar groupings together using these range values, and we neutralize against the volume, we can actually get a pretty good performing alpha. Also, something we need to change of this is that you can see that my decay is now at 5 and my truncation is at 0.08. So there's a difference between this alpha, the previous one, is just negative SCL12 underscore bars, and this one. The new one will be neutralized against the volume of the stock, and we change the decay and the truncation. So I'll let you guys look at it for a bit. So after this webinar, you guys should have access to 3 submittable alphas. Right. So that is actually all of the content we're going through. So we're telling you guys more about the Brain Research Consultant Program. So you guys should be at 10K points or reaching 10K points or on the way there. So if you guys reach 10,000 points, you guys will be eligible for the Brain Research Consultant Program. So as a research consultant, you guys will be, oh, I think my screen is dying. Yeah, so as a research consultant, you guys will be eligible for earning opportunities. So up to $60 a day for the first 4 alphas you submit in a day. Can get quarterly payments anywhere from 100 to 25K per calendar quarter. And you guys will also have a referral fee of additional $200 per successful referral in USD based off applicable criteria. So these are the three main benefits you guys can get. So this is just the roadmap again. So you start off in bronze, then you go to silver, then once you reach gold at 10K, you guys will be invited to be a brain research consultant. So once you guys become a brain research consultant, the journey doesn't actually end there because there will be, oh, this, the screen is dying. So you guys will get access to the brain research advisory program where our brain researcher will actually continue to teach you guys about how to create alpha in a more efficient way. And you guys can create your own research process and research simulation infrastructure. So the learning don't stop just because you became a research consultant. It will actually continue, and you guys will be continuously improving through the research advisory program. So yeah, if you guys have not gone through the tutorials, please go through the tutorials. Read the documentation under the Learn tab of WorldQuant BRAIN and read all the different starter packs. And thank you very much for your time. So thank you everyone for attending the webinar. I know it's quite late. So yeah, I hope you guys have learned something new, and those who are attending the Alphathon, I will wish you guys all the best and get that prize money. So where will you be able to access those links? I think you're referring to this, right? So these links are actually on the Brain platform. On the top, you can just click on done. Then on the left, documentation, and you can see here, you can read the starter pack, and yeah, the links are actually here. So I think someone asked, how can we learn what are the suitable range to apply on what kind of data? So I think that depends on the actual alpha itself, because certain alpha works better if the groups are more well defined or more specific, while some other alphas actually work better if the groups are like more, I would say, more widespread. Yeah, so it actually depends on the alpha itself. So there isn't really a set range that works best for all. Yeah, so thank you everyone for coming down. It's going to be 9 p.m. Yeah. So everyone have a good night, guys. It's quite late. And all the best for your alpha competition. Can we get the slides? Sorry, but we cannot share the slides. Right. Have a good night, everybody.